I understand that you have this master's degree from Nottingham University, but don't have any documentary evidence to prove it. There's no degree certificate with you, is there?
Well, as a matter of fact, now I have, but that's actually a fact because see, we all follow the legacy of British, and the legacy of British here is to do everything on the basis of distrust. Yeah, that's the basic. If you want to describe that in one word, the legacy is that's how they control. Small number of people control the whole country. When I went there, I found the logic which works there is completely different. And well, I saw that every stage. But to cut the long story short, when I completed the program and I was about to come back, first I asked my professor that, look, now you please arrange my final dissertation examination so that I can go. So he said, let me check up. He probably talked to the external examiner and said, next day he came back, the external examiner has read your thesis, he is extremely happy. No formal examination is necessary, so you can go. Then I said, what about my certificate? So he asked, what certificate? And said, no, if I have to go back, I have to carry a piece of paper and give it in my department that I did actually obtain this degree. So he said, no, you go back and say that if you want anything, you contact Professor Fessler, who was my professor. And I will tell them how good or bad you are. So I said, no, that doesn't work. You have to give me a certificate. He said, no, don't worry. We can give that to you only after the convocation is over. But I will see to it that you are properly admitted to the convocation. Now, this was a new term for me. And so finally, I said, the convocation and admission to convocation, all that thing you do, but I need a piece of paper. So I think I came back, of course, without a paper. But later on, they sent me a paper and said, this is specially made for you because you insisted.
Let me drag you back a little. I understand that yours is a very unique case in the sense that your mother tongue is Marathi. Most of your school education was in Hindi. And later, of course, you studied in English and then went all the way to England to study in their own language. Did this transition from one language to the other or the other kinds of difficulties, did it have any difficulties for you in your progress at any time?
No, not really. Well, there is always initial difficulty when you start doing things in a language which is different than what you are used to. But I think that lasts only for 6 months or so. After that, you become used to it.
So. My asking this question is, a lot of talk these days about whether one should study in one's own mother tongue. The medium of instruction should be one's own mother tongue or English or whatever other language. And one of the points made is that the transition from, say, Marathi or Hindi to school level into English at the higher education is rather difficult for the student. But from your case, it doesn't appear to be so. It's just a question of mindset, perhaps.
Well, in a way, it's true, but I think at the younger age, at the formative stage, it's always good to be able to study in the language where you can imbibe the concepts most easily. And to that extent, I would say mother tongue has some merit. But then, after all, particularly in science, science is international, so you got to know other languages as well.
After your return to India, you applied, I should say, even 200% to the design and assembly of Dhruva. Was it anyway taken up as a challenge, or was it a different type of activity?
Well, it was, till I got into Dhruva by accident. I was not in the original team. And I was obviously I had done the development of PHWR components in the reactor engineering division, and that was my prime preoccupation in those days. It so happened that the person who was looking after the main pile block, the main reactor core, he decided to quit. And our director at that time, I was quite young compared to other people holding similar responsibilities. So, but he called me and he said, no, you're taking this. So I did have a lot of hesitation. But it was actually Mr. Mikuni, he died just a few days back. So, but he was a great man, and he created all the confidence in me and said, no, you can do it. And of course, after that, there was no looking back.
There are, of course, a large number of achievements during your long and illustrious career. But if I were to name just 3 highlights of your career, I would say Dhruva, Pokhran 1 and Pokhran 2. Each was a challenge of a different kind. Would you like to say what were the challenges and how did you prepare yourself to meet them?
Well, Dhruva, I would say, Dhruva is, I'm a little proud about and feel very possessive about it because although, as I said, I joined the group later, but one of the condition on which I joined was that I will not be binding myself with the concepts which are already existing. And I was given full freedom to evolve the concept myself. And that was a challenge. So every line of the reactor block is conceptually done by me and my group. So, and then of course, when you try to implement such things, there are difficulties, and then of course everybody holds you to, I would say, holds you to ransom, because you have got to now prove that you can actually construct it and the thing will work. But
let me to interject a moment. Isn't Dhruva the one of the only reactor of its kind and of its size in the world?
Well, of its kind, yes, that's true. Of course, there are research reactors which are similar or higher, but conceptually they are different.
It's a 1000 megawatt reactor.
100 megawatt. 100 megawatt. So there is that satisfaction of having created something completely new, even on conceptual terms. Pokhran 1, I'm seeing Mr. Soni here. Again, there I was a late entrant. The work was going on, but then one day they decided that this chap has to be inducted in. And then, of course, that was a time of great excitement. And the difficulty there was you have got to do everything yourself. Very few people. The big project, normally you work in a big team. Engineering is a thing where you work in a big team. Here, you had to do everything yourself. Practically many things only between Mr. Soni and me. And then, so that's a added responsibility, and that too of an experiment which has such great significance. Pokhran 2 was, I think, an even bigger challenge because at that time I was Director BARC, and Director BARC, see, nuclear test is essentially a BARC activity, or nuclear weapons is essentially a BARC activity. And so as Director BARC, I had to not only make sure that technically everything is right, but also in terms of implementation, small things are done right. And again, you got to do it with a very small number of people, but at the same time, you cannot afford to leave loose ends. So I think Pokhran 2 was a great technical challenge, but also a great management challenge, which